Hello and welcome to another Boiler House Garage video. At last they've arrived. After nearly a month's lead time, these Magnecor KV85 HT leads. The part number for the Cavalier is 4586. However, I've noticed something strange. It's actually reminded me of when I've used these leads in the past. Magnecor seem to think that the Opel Manta and the Vauxhall Cavalier have extra long turrets on their distributor caps for some strange reason, because they don't. If we take a look at the spark plug end of the leads first, you can see that they're a good match for the leads currently on the car. If you go to the other end of the lead that fits into the distributor cap, you can see these electrodes are longer because for some reason they think the turrets on these are taller, and of course, as you noticed in the last video, I did fit a Bosch distributor cap. The Bosch distributor cap is the OE part, however the Lucas and the cheaper intermotor and commercial ignition variants are all exactly the same. The turret heights are identical. The leads will actually fit and work and make good contact, it's just that they won't sit quite low enough on the turrets now, which is needed in case it takes a splash of water to stop water ingress. So in a damp morning as well, that could cause problems. Most of the time it won't, but when you spend £100 on a set of HT leads, you'd expect them to be right. I've even dug up some pictures of some old project cars that I've been working on, including my concourse winning Opel Manta GTE, where the issue of these turret boots are still the same. Nevertheless, I'll have to do. Now let's move on to fitting some good quality spark plugs. These plugs are practically identical to the ones in there. The only difference is their NGK R. The R doesn't stand for racing or anything special like that. It's actually resistor, meaning that the plug should have less interference. You'll need a 21mm socket. So this is actually one designed for a spark plug with a little rubber boot in it. You can get a good idea of how your car is running by checking the colour on the spark plug electrode. Here it actually looks pretty good. Ignore the oil on the threads because that's actually from a leaking rocker cover gasket before I changed the rocker cover itself. I'm actually pleased to and surprised to see the colour of this, because the car does smell like it's been running rich, but these plugs say otherwise. This is the original spark plug part number, their NGK also. So what I'm going to do is, because of the oil that's in the threads here, I'll just give them a little bit of a clean up before I put the new ones in. I almost forgot, don't forget to check the spark plug gap. They are generally set close or okay, but I noticed in more recent time with classic cars, some of them have been a little bit out from the car you've ordered it for. You can find out the correct spark plug gap by using a Haynes manual or simply looking up online, perhaps one of the owners' clubs. If you don't have a spark plug gap adjuster, you can actually use a knife blade because they get progressively wider on the way sort of down the blade. It's best practice to refit a spark plug using your hand rather than the ratchet, just so you don't cross thread it. There's usually a specified torque setting for the spark plugs, around 20 foot-pounds, which is roughly 25 in Roman Catholic. This torque wrench only goes as low as 42 Newton meters, however, so I tend to just get a feel of it by hand. Whatever you do not over tighten. A temporary loss of compression is better than stripping the threads out of the head. Here's how the other three spark plugs look from cylinders 1 to 3. With the 4 Magnecor leads, this lead holder here is pretty much redundant because the kit includes the little floating lead holders. I've got the one that holds 3 wires already fitted. There is a 4-wire one here, and also a little 2-wire. I may move this one up a little bit, but these wires are a little bit tight to keep them neat. Speaking of tight wires, this one going to the coil leads, I don't have much room to play with. But at least unlike the coil side of the leads, they haven't claimed that the turret is extra long, so the boot will actually fit over this properly. To be honest, I think this coil's seen better days. I could actually move it to give the coil lead a bit more slack, but the bracket itself seems a little bit wonky and wobbly, so I might just order a new one. Just fit this as is for now. So we've got all new spark plugs, and the Magnecor HT leads are now all in place. Just a quick update on a few other bits I'm waiting on. You can see there's a bit of an oil leak here at the bottom of the block. This is actually the oil pump side of the engine, however I think this oil seepage is coming from the fuel pump. It's a mechanical fuel pump driven off of the distributor shaft. There's a little cam lobe on that which drives the fuel pump. Over on the manifold side here, I did actually see that there's a K&N plenum, because you've got this isn't a cross-flow engine, you've got the heat coming from the exhaust manifold going straight into this K&N air filter, so I think that's given me some running issues in the hot weather and traffic and such. They're quite expensive and on a long back order, but I have actually found one second hand, so I'll have a proper cool air intake eventually. I'm still unfortunately losing with this water pump. I do have to find a kit or somebody that can get rid of these snapped off bolts. Without that, unfortunately, I can't properly secure this, so I'm getting a coolant leak. I'm losing about a litre for every 200 to 300 miles. It's not severe, I can actually use the car, but the coolant level does drop, obviously. Now let's see how she starts. I'm using a bit of choke here, it hasn't been started for a couple of days. That's actually idling far too fast, so I'm going to put the choke in a little bit, maybe all the way if it will still run. And it does, that is no choke at all. This is a stone cold engine that hasn't run for a couple of days. I already took the cap off earlier, but there's no heat in this engine at all. It has missed a couple of times. It does seem to idle okay, but when you drive you do get a misfire, but the Magnecor leads are certainly doing their job very well. If it wasn't just for the fact that they keep putting the distributor cap and coil have extra deep towers. No, they do not. Stop doing this, Magnecor.